Folks, good morning. Welcome on back here to all of us on YouTube, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, etc. Get the frog out of my throat there first. Great to have all of us back, though, on our trading floor, inside our live trading room. Kathleen, Brad, Gillis, Uday, Michael, Phil, Leda. There we go. The voice is good to go now. Great to have all of us here, though. Tuesday, April 15th, everyone's favorite day. Congratulations, folks. We've made it to tax day, the greatest day of the year. Great to have all of us here. Hope you're enjoying the lovely morning here. Of course, kidding aside, we've had a great morning at least, but on this trade here, Mura, M-U-R-A, Moral Oncology, stock ended up making a huge pop at 8 o'clock in the morning, ended up running up perfectly. And now at this stage, it's up 100%. We've seen stocks up a hell of a lot more, but here's the danger with this stock. Great to have all of us, though, here just joining us here. Michael D, Michael J, Elena, Gillis, Brad, all of us here. So jump right to it. The danger with this stock right now is that this is already filled part of a gap. And that's the good part about this trade to begin with. It ended up beginning to make a nice push to begin, but it actually broke over this price here. This was, the high back from March 25th, had a huge gap down prior up until that point. So ended up topping off this day at 182, $1.82. So otherwise today, we saw this break over that 182 price pretty quickly. Looks like it did a pretty good job holding it as support. Couple shakes here and there, but generally got the job done, pushed up off of it. Is it going to continue? Are we going to see this stock fill more of this gap here at least? Hey, I hope so. I hope so here. But normally when a gap is filled or partially filled, when the volume is declining here, looking at my volume bars, when the volume and momentum upward is being lost, that's where this stock will typically fall very fast. So I will put this on our watch list at least to begin. It was a great pre-market trade, and a bunch of us ended up cleaning up on this trade just before too. So let me break out the chat here just a moment ago. So Kerry in and out on this, I think. So Leda in and out on this, I think. Yeah, Kerry G, one of our longtime members here, got in from $1.67 and got out at 207. Leda also got in on this trade for about 10, 12 cents. So listen, you don't need to hit a home run on this stock. This is just one stock, and even before the market opens. So it's good to still play it as if it's nickels and dimes, because some profit is at least better than no profit. And the last thing that you want to do is be on the top of the roller coaster looking down, especially here in pre-market. You can't set stop orders. Remember that, folks. For anyone here, you can't use market orders. You can't use stop orders. That is why pre-market trading is a bit more dangerous, at least if you don't know how to manage your positions. Now, either way, it's still making higher lows. Hopefully there is a case for this to try and break pre-market high of the day here and keep going. But just be mindful of profit taking before the opening bell at least. Now, yesterday we ended up seeing the SPY make a bit of a wonky move. Up and down it went. Not surprising though, right? I mean, hey, if you were trading with us here last week, then you know that it was one of the craziest weeks ever in market history, with Wednesday at least being one of the biggest up days in market history between the NASDAQ and the S&P. So after so much craziness, it is not surprising to have a little bit more of a quiet day. And yes, this is kind of quiet considering all things, right? SPY ended up dropping down 9 points, popped back up 8 points back. That's actually kind of quiet considering all things. Also keep in mind, obviously, as we had mentioned back from yesterday, Passover already started. We have Easter this Sunday, Good Friday coming up. The market's closed. It is a holiday week, folks. So not only because of what's already happened, you should probably have a bit of a hangover within the market for that reason, but also it's a holiday week. So you shouldn't really expect too much craziness out there. Obviously, keep your ear to the floor, and who knows, you might have Trump say something, Lutnick say something, anyone out there say something that could influence the markets, but hopefully we have more quietness. We need a little consolidation, at least, folks, before we start looking more aggressively for swing positions. And Fausto was the first to say that even with us yesterday. So really the trade of yesterday, the big one, right? Webull, bull. Definitely was not bullshit. This thing ended up making a huge run up pretty much as soon as the market opened, broke over pre-market resistance here roughly off of 37, flew up. I got in on this trade a little bit later on as it pulled back off of 60. I took a break even I took a small loss at first, and then it ended up jumping back in. Got about 5 or 6 points on the move. But otherwise, though, the better run was from the morning. When an IPO makes a pop, it's not really something that we treat seriously. The reason is because normally IPOs have very low volume, low outstanding shares, a low float. And normally you'll tend to see them just completely come back down afterwards, right? I mean, obviously Newsmax is the big one that we've had our eyes on prior to Webull. Just otherwise I can go through a litany of different trades at least. But for the Webull trade, hey, this one ended up treating us very nicely at least. And if you were able to jump in on this, even on 10 shares, 50 shares, heck, 1 share, just to do it for the fun, hey, you're not making the big bucks on 1 share. You might not even be making big bucks on 10 shares. On 50 shares, you're probably making decent income, even if you're making 5 points on a trade. That's 250 bucks. That's a solid, profit for any one trade. Either way you cut it, even if you didn't make the big bucks on this trade, you're doing it for practice. This is not the type of stock that you should be trading a large size on. So, we want to train ourselves by following stocks that are not as crazy as this, because at least the more that we see the same things play out on those stocks, we'll have the chance to increase share size. If we're just, going at it here, making a win, making a loss, making a win, making a loss, I don't know how much we're gaining out of that in terms of like confidence level. You know what I mean? So it's just to say this was a fun stock. Congratulations to actually a lot of our students that did very well on this trade. I want to bring the chat back up for those students too, actually. So from yesterday, let's take a quick look to see who ended up making some money on the Webull. So I know one of our students, Ron P, he had 2 trades. He got out at 78.40, pretty much right near the top. There was a pretty big resistance at 80 bucks, and that did become the high of the day there. So Ron P ended up doing pretty well on it. Patrick went in and out a few times. John S got a bunch of us at least here, right? John S was in that last trade with me from like 62 out of 70 practically. Kerry got a few bucks on that trade as well. I think Genevieve, one of our new trial members, was just testing it out. Very small size, she wrote to us, which is good at first. I think that she's going to fit in very well at CTO. It's just to say, hey, even, a couple of our new members got in on this trade at least. Now, we're putting this to the side. We're done with this toy. We're going to find a new toy here in the stock market to trade. You don't need to be drawn and glued to the same stock over and over, because the more you do that, you're going to be on the roller coaster looking down, right? Look what happened again, like we had said, to Newsmax. Was it fun these 2 days? Yeah. If you held on any longer than that, I'm sure it wasn't too fun for you. So, hey, there's very high risk with Webull. We'll come back to it if we need to, if there's a reason to, right? But let's go through a couple more others that we had from yesterday. The stack trade. STAK, cheap stock, but ended up making a really good move heading into the afternoon. Basically broke over $2 here, flipped that into support, pushed up much higher. This was a beautiful trade, at least for the afternoon. Now, obviously, this is doing what we normally expect most stocks here to do, down 21% from the close. We're also done with this toy. We're moving on from here. Verve, VERV, this is actually holding up really well this morning, up 15% from the close. This had a pretty good bounce yesterday. It wasn't one of our best trades of the day, but it was a move that we had called out. It was a move that a lot of us did make some money on at least. And although it failed to break higher heading into the end of the day, obviously you're seeing that here this morning in the pre-market. So I don't mind adding Verve to our main list here, at least for the open. Definitely has good reason to be on there. You have a pretty big historical level, loosely speaking, around 430-ish, 440-ish, you can kind of say together, combination of those two prices. Currently, oh, well, what do you know? That's basically where it was holding underneath yesterday. I mean, it got kind of close there by the end of the day, but not really all the way. Now this morning, it looks like it's trying to hold over this as support, even as early as the 8 o'clock move here. So it wouldn't shock me if it pulls back down there by the time the market opens up, and we'll see if we can get that support to truly hold. I don't mind putting this on our main list at least to start. I like the Mora trade at least a little bit more. Now, TMC, also another stock from yesterday, pushing up even better than the Verve. TMC had a clean breakout heading into the mid-afternoon here off the highs, off of 250, 255 here. Ran up beautifully, and obviously now pushing up higher as we speak. So let me just break open Bookmap here, level 4. This is what we were just calling out inside our live trading room, if I'm not mistaken. I think I was on top of this right here just a moment ago. And I want to actually show this to all of our members as well. This is all the chat with TMC in it this morning. So basically, I logged into the room around 8:15 this morning. I kind of just made a filler post just saying it's moving back up. But here's the more interesting part of this trade. We had a 13,000 share iceberg order on the ask at 350. That was resistance. And the key word in that sentence was had. It had. But basically, I commented up right away after and I said, well, that iceberg order, I think that just got pulled from the ask. That got removed. So what happens when we see an iceberg get removed from the ask? Well, it's the opposite of asking, well, what happens when the rug gets pulled, right? I mean, when the ceiling gets pulled, well, the stock's going to likely look to make a good move. So this pushed up pretty well. You got your next resistance here at 397, basically 389 to 397 together. That combination should be resistance. Definitely going on the top of our watch list for right now. This might be better than the Mora. TMC. All right, so we got 3 good trades to work with here heading into the open, but of course we'll go across the percent gainers and losers here, see what else we can scan through here and see what else we got. All right, so let's see here. SYNR Synergy Corp, ended up having a good run earlier today. It is trying to bounce now. I'll even come back to this by the end of this meeting. I'll see if this is either just another lower high or if it's going to pop more. If we don't have a big list, I'll probably slip this on here at the end. SBEV, another cheap stock, popped actually from yesterday. I didn't even realize this. What was this at the close yesterday? Popped in the after hours. This looks like a full market day. This is like right from 4 p.m. Eastern time. This is 4 a.m. Eastern time. So this is a lot of data actually to work with here. So it did pull back down throughout most of this morning. It's very similar to the SYNR, where it's starting to make a small bounce, and you don't know if you could fully trust it yet. Considering that it's 2 of the more active stocks throughout the market this morning, I don't mind putting them on our list. I just want to see if there's anything looking better. USAR, this was a stock from yesterday. It was more in the morning. It had some pretty thin volume out there. It wasn't like something that was more tradable than the others that we just went over. It moved up though, right? It moved up, and it's moving up even more today. I think this is also an IPO of sorts, either that or a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company. Again, I actually like the other 2 more. So at this stage, I'll kind of bite on the SYNR. I'll bite on the SBEV because I like those more than this at least here. So for cherry picking, may as well just go with those 2. All right, Newsmax going back up again. It actually had a pretty good pop yesterday with Webull going up. So is it possible this makes another push? I'd rather trade stocks that have better liquidity. MP, I think this is also a new IPO. I'm wrong. Not a new IPO. Not a new IPO. Yank the leash, Josh. Not a new IPO, but definitely breaking 52-week highs. MP, again, probably similar with the USAR. It's not going to have a lot of orders out there, and that doesn't make it easier for us to follow the big money. If there's no big money out there on the order book, and our whole philosophy is to follow the big money, it doesn't mean to just press the buy button and just expect it to pop. If there's no big money trading the stock, it actually makes our lives a little bit more difficult, if you think of it that way. So AREB going back up again. This thing has been through the spin cycle, up and down over the last week. I mean, up first and then I guess back down. But I thought it did make a little up move yesterday, and it's going back up more this morning. Definitely be careful on the order book for this one, but I don't mind, I guess, kind of adding this here, AREB. We are familiar with it. Hopefully it holds here. It's only up 5%. So let's see if there's anything from the loser side here. Any losers that we could work with. Let's find out. I'm going to drop the volume here. Let's see. So a lot of the gainers from yesterday, Stack and Bull, both down big. Kids, KIDZ, this was also one from yesterday, but more of a flash pop and drop move. This actually looks similar to the SYNR or the SBEV, it dumped off in all a pre-market. Yeah, it ended up having a little scalp move here where it pushed up for about an hour, but it came back down really, really hard, really fast afterwards. So now I'm just mentioning for those 2 that we did put on the list, SBEV, SYNR, same thing could happen to those 2 as it just happened with kids. So be careful on that. APLD down over 8%. That's tradable. If it gets closer to the lows, maybe we'll look for a short. Boeing down a little bit this morning. Maybe some news came out with them. Not down enough for really me to get that interested. I'll tell you what, folks, otherwise it's been more of a bland pre-market. That Mora trade held us up very well, but otherwise everything else like either just a little red or just a little flat, a little stagnant, not a whole lot happening here on like Tesla, NVIDIA. We'll take a look at Amazon, Apple was up big yesterday, but it wiped out all of its gains, most, if not all of its gains, back down to $200. Great to have one of our students here on YouTube joining us here. Great to have you, Judge. All right, folks, if there's anything else looking good across the board, up, down, left, right, more than 5%, inside our live trading room, definitely let me know. Chris asking, are the Bitcoin stocks worth watching? Well, if there's anyone to bite on that, it would definitely be me. I'd love to add the Bitcoin stocks to our watch list any day of the week. You know, I would love to see another big pop on Bitcoin. We talked about that just yesterday in our workshop. So I am in Bitcoin right now pretty heavily. You know, hey, if they pop, then I'll be a fan of calling it out. But right now, these trades aren't nearly as looking good as we've seen them. So if they pop, we'll call it out when the time comes. But this is where I will say, like, it's a good question from Chris, and that's where I'll just mention to everyone. You want to prioritize going into the open, right? So it's good to ask. And right now, I think that Mora is better. I think TMC is better. You know, if those stocks dry up within the first 10, 15 minutes, and if we do start to see a move up on Bitcoin, then I'll probably switch over rather fast, around like 9:45 in the morning, we'll say 9:40, 9:45. But I definitely want to start and stick with what we got here to begin. All right, there we go. Adele with some information on Webull. Oh, so Webull's a acquisition company too there, Adele? It's not an IPO technically? Apparently, Webull's listed as a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company. I didn't know that. Appreciate that, Adele. Thank you. One of our new gold students here. All right, folks, I'll tell you what. I think that we went up and down the scanners here. We are good to go. So let me post this list inside our live trading room on the trading floor, that is, I should say. Now, if you're there right now, just stay tuned. We're going to jump off the mic. We'll be back on in about 13 or so minutes, right when the market opens up. You know, Fausto's out throughout the rest of this week. Obviously, market's closed Friday anyway, so just today, tomorrow, Thursday, he's out. So you got me throughout the morning. You got Rich throughout the afternoon. And then if you're on social media right now, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works, scan that QR code on the top right there. If you're interested in joining our free workshop coming up this Thursday, if you wanted to commit and join us inside our live trading room for a week-long trial, you can go right down to the link scrolling below and on the bottom in blue, ctu.co/trial, it says. And then otherwise, that's the best way to continue and join the commentary, join our students, and then otherwise react to our call outs as we're trading them live. So for all of us there right now, just stay tuned. We'll be back on the mic in just a moment. Take care.